What's up guys, John here and welcome back to John Moon Studios. In today's video, I'm going to be going more in depth inside of Chord Assistant, chord pads to show you how you can start arranging your tracks and also start building your chord progressions when you're beginning to write your music. There's some very helpful tools inside of Cubase that'll make it easy for us to choose chords. Having some kind of a music theory background or music theory knowledge will help you in this adventure. But if you don't know or get confused along the way and you want me to re-explain it, leave a comment down below and I can make a separate video talking about chord progressions and some cadences that you can use for your songs. With that being said, let's get right to it. So this is a continuation to a video I already posted, which was the basics of using the chord pads. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to go ahead and link it on the top right now, and I'm going to drop it down below in the description. With that being said, we're going to go into my computer right now to check out the interface. I already have everything set up, so we're just going to go straight into the Chord Assistant. What we're going to do is we're going to start off in a basic key that everybody understands. So we're going to start in the key of C major. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Option to pull out the pencil tool, and then I'm just going to click on measure 1. Here we created a chord right on the chord track, and now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to create a C major 7 chord. So the reason why I put a chord down first is because in order for us to use Chord Assistant, we need to have a chord preceding that one. So if I draw another chord and I put it on measure 2, and now I double click on this X and then I go into Chord Assistant. Now we start to see a window where it shows you a bunch of chords. Now what does this mean? It's very simple to understand. This is what they call a proximity chart. So your C major chord is the one preceding, and all of the chords that are closest to the home base of that C major chord is going to be first line, let's call it. And then we start to get farther away. So then we have the second curve. Then we have third, fourth curve, and then you see they're also color coded, so you know which ones are really far off of the key and then which ones are closer. So the green ones are going to be closer. For this example, we're just going to go into a very close chord, and I'm going to put the F major 7 chord. Now I'm going to click out, and I'm just going to play this so we can start to get a feel on how this is going to sound. So let's hear it. Perfect. It already sounds like a groove. Let's go ahead and keep going. So what we're going to do is I'm going to Option click again. I'm going to go to measure 3, and we're going to see what chords we have available now. So remember, it always takes the preceding chord and it tells you what chord can go next or which one can I choose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to 1 and I'm going to create a cadence. So we're going to go 1 chord to the 4 chord, and then I'm going to use this G sus chord. It looks like an interesting chord to be able to go back to my home base, which is C major right here. So I'm going to hit G sus. Already sounds cool. Now for a suspended chord, there's a lot of tension in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resolve that tension by creating another chord on the 3rd beat here. And I'm going to make this a G7. So look how it populates right here. Notice how I'm using chords that are within right now. I'm not going too far out into the lines here. So G7. So if I go into my chart really quick, notice how I don't have a chord behind this one, so it says it needs to precede. So I'm going to go to the next one by clicking this arrow. So the chord before was C major, and now I'm going to go to F major 7. I'm going to go to the next chord. My chord before was F major 7, and I chose to go to G sus 4/7, right? So here's the chord, and then now for the next chord, if I move over, it says the possible chords are, look at this, G7. So you see how I'm starting to use the Chord Assistant to kind of guide me on which chords I'm using. And I'm staying really close right now because I don't want to go too crazy right now. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what we have here. Actually, let me just put the resolving chord. So let me go to the first beat of 4 and let's put a C major 7. Look, it's very close in there. So now let's take a listen to the track. Perfect. That's starting to sound actually really good. It's starting to sound like something you would hear in pop music or something you'd hear in like a ballad or something like that. So let's go ahead and continue. Now let's see, we're going to option click on measure 5. Let's duplicate this a few times so we have enough drum track. And now I'm going to open this up. Now let's go somewhere else. Let's go to the yellow one. So for example, I'm going to choose A minor 7, right? That's the minor 6 inside of C. That sounds really cool. And now let's go ahead and just play it just to see what it does to the next phrase. That's starting to sound really good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another cadence, and I'm going to go right back into C major 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a chord here, and we're going to check what our available chords are. I'm going to choose one a little bit closer. So I'm going to choose D7, right? And that's a very interesting sound, and we're going to see why. Because now the next chord I'm going to choose on 7 here. So we have a few options here. So I'm actually going to go and do something a little bit different. So let's see if this actually works out. I'm going to go ahead and resolve this to a G major 7 or a G7. Let's do a G7. So I'm going to go into my editor and just do G7. And now for the next chord I'm going to go over, I'm actually going to do a very interesting chord here. I'm going to do a G augmented chord. So we're going to do G augmented. And let's see what this sounds like really quick, starting from A minor 7. Pretty cool, pretty interesting sound. Again, we're just experimenting. This is not supposed to sound great, or if it does, great. If it doesn't, then we start to manipulate some of these chords so that we can get it to our liking. So again, I'm just playing around with these chords, adding a little bit more tension. Let's go ahead and resolve this back to C major 7. So I'm going to option click to copy that over. Let's start from the beginning and see how this resolves. Perfect. Now, what we can do, let's see, let's try a different approach to this. Instead of doing 2 chords to resolve to C major 7, I'm actually going to leave it with 1. Let's leave it with the G7 here. So let's take a listen to it. Because I just heard something else in my head. So let's go ahead and put it down on paper. Let's see what the chart says the next chord can be, because I'm sure one of the possibilities is the one that I'm thinking of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift keys. I'm going to go into E minor, but I'm going to do it in a way that's very common to musicians, especially jazz musicians. But for most people, they don't know how to get that sound. So I'm going to explain to you how I get it. So I'm looking for an F sharp diminished chord. And look how far it is out here. So from C major 7, look how far that F sharp diminished chord is. I'm going to go ahead and put that F sharp diminished chord. And then on beat 4, let's see what the next possibility is. It's going to be pretty much, there's really not a lot to combine F sharp diminished. It's going to be very far away. But we're going to choose B7 because I want to do 2, 5, 1 into E minor. So we're going to do another chord here. And then you're going to see that E minor 7 from B7 is actually really close. So we're going to choose E minor 7. So let's listen to what this sounds like, starting from A minor 7. Very popular sound inside of jazz. It's actually used in like R&B pop. It's not that much of a secret, but as you can see, it sounds really, really good. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning and see what we have in its entirety right now. Perfect. So let's go ahead and keep going. Let's see if we can finish off this drum track here. So I'm going to fill in the next chord here just so we have a little bit more to look off of. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to explain some things to you to see if maybe it could be a little bit easier for you to understand why I chose the chords I chose and how Chord Assistant is also making my life easier because I don't really need to think of those chords in my head. I could just see them in a layout. So I'm going to do Option, click, and from E minor 7, let's go ahead and see what our options here. Let's see if we can do possibly D major 7. Let's see what happens there. So let's go from the C. Okay, it's starting to sound, this chord almost sounds like it can loop, or what they call vamping in music. They can loop between these two chords. So let's drag the E minor 7 and drag D major 7 here. This could be like our pre-chorus or maybe something like that. So let's start back from C major 7. Perfect. So let's go back a little bit and just kind of talk about some of the chords that I'm using and why I made those choices. Again, there's no right or wrong answer here. Of course, there is a level of understanding you need to have so that you understand how harmony works, but I'm going to try to explain it as simple as possible. If not, this video will be extremely long. So we're going to go ahead and start from C major 7. So this is the 1 chord, and from the 1 chord I went to the 4 chord. And then from the 4 chord, I went to the 5, and then 1. So what did I do here? I just added a suspended chord to create a little bit more interest, right? So this is a G major chord. So if I play a G major chord, let's play it down here. If I play a G major chord and I do a suspended 4, right? So I do. Your ears are going to want to go to that note. So the G sus 4/7, it's also adding the 7, so it's the dominant 7, so it's F. So the chord itself sounds like this. And then I'm going, which is the G7. So that's why I added that chord in there. We go to C major 7, which is 1. A minor 7, which is the minor 6 chord in the key of C major. So if I go, that's the minor 6 chord. The D7, that's actually not a chord that's a part of the key of C. So I added that because it's actually what we call a secondary dominant chord. It's the 5th of the next chord. So I'm just creating tension. I'm creating that anticipation so that you want to hear the G7 chord. So if I play a D7 chord, which is, your ears want to go, right? It wants to hear that resolution. So what I did was I did a D7. I went to G7. So again, I deceived you again and I went to another chord that's going to make you want to go to another chord. So I did D7 to G7 to C major 7. So I tied 2 dominant chords that's just pulling you. Right now all I'm doing is I'm pulling you, your ears, to want to resolve the chord on C major 7. So that's why I did these 2 chords here. Now the cool chords, which is what most people would identify them as, cool chords or odd chords or the ones that stand out the most, is going to be these 2 chords. Now why did I do it? What I'm doing here is I'm trying to pull your ear to the next chord, right? So I'm going to use the 2 minor 7 flat 5 to the 5 to the minor 1 in the key of E minor. That's why you get that pull inside of there. This cadence is used a lot in jazz to pull you into a new key. So this is all it is. It's a 2, 5, 1 using the chords inside of the key of E minor. So that's why it sounds like it stands out a lot. Let's take a listen. But it sounds very nice going into E minor 7. So let's go ahead and continue. So let's see what other chords we have. Let's just use Chord Assistant. It's going to help us out. So D major 7's right here. And let's say we want to go to, let's try B minor 7. Let's see what this sounds like. Let's go from here. Perfect. So let's go ahead and see what else we can add after this. So we have B minor 7. We can actually create something similar like we did here, but we're in a new key right now. We're in D major. So we're going to do B minor 7, right? And then we're going to do the 5 of the 5. So the 5 in D major is going to be A. So we need an E7 chord. Let's see how close that is here. So E7 is relatively close. So we're going to go ahead and put E7. And then we're going to do the 5th of D. Let's do it A7, which should be relatively close to us. A7. It's actually not close to us, but we can go ahead and just add it here. Or we can just do the trick we did in the beginning. So let's do an A, sus4, 7. And then we're going to go ahead and do an A7. And then create our 1 chord here. So if we go to Chord Assistant, so you can see how close the D is to this new key. So look at it, it's right there. So if we go back to our 2-5-1 into E minor, and then we jump into the key of D major, and then we're going to do 6, 5 of 5, 5, 1 chord progression. So let's go ahead and check it out. And there you have your chord progression, and we reached the end of the drum track. So let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit, and let's play this from the beginning and see how our song sounds. Here we go. Beautiful. So there we have our chord progression. I showed you a little bit on how you can use Chord Assistant to help you choose some of those chords. Having that music theory knowledge is going to help out tremendously if you're trying to create some chord progressions. Yes, you can go through trial and error and just try different chords, but I want you to think of it like this. If it's already in your head, it's going to be a lot quicker to write a song than if you have to start guessing which chords you're playing. So learning some kind of harmony or having some training in harmony is going to help you create better songs. So this is how I would probably use Chord Assistant. Again, most of these chords came out of my head, and I just saw that it was there in Chord Assistant. So let me show you one more trick we could do inside of this project. We can go ahead and highlight all of these chords, and we just drag it down to the actual piano sound that is allowing us to hear these chords. So here's my Rhodes, and I could drag it down. As you can see, all of my chords are here. So let's say now I want to make it one track. I could just grab my glue tool, and I can start from the left and just start either clicking one by one, or I highlight the entire thing. And then what I do is I just click glue. All of my chords are inside of this one region. If I want to change a voicing, or maybe I didn't like how, for example, I didn't like how this chord resolved, it has a note higher. I don't want it to go up. Let's say I want this note. It's an A. I want it to go to this A. I can do now. Let me mute the chord track. Maybe that sounds a little bit more pleasing to me. So this is going to wrap up, which I thought was going to be a short video, but turned out to be a lengthy video. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. If you do have any questions about the Chord Assistant or the chord tracks, just go ahead and drop your comments down below. I'll get to them as soon as possible. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, share this with your musician friends, and I will see you guys in the next video.